And welcome back, Scrubs, to the Bench Mob for what may be our final episode. Only
of the semester.
Of the semester. Of the semester.
That's very final, John.
Oh, I'm just being, I don't know. I apologize. Anyways. Well,
didn't mean to scare you, Rod.
Well, we didn't mean to scare you. Sorry, Mom and Rod. Let's get to it. We're going to talk quickly about the first round of the playoffs, probably the most entertaining first round of the NBA playoffs ever. We can all of us can agree on that. So, guys, what was your personal favorite series?
All right, well, mine was the Dallas Mavericks versus the San Antonio Spurs, and I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but just seeing all these older guys go back and forth at each other, like Vince Carter versus Manu Ginobili would have been really cool in 2004.
Yeah,
like I would have
10 years ago.
I would have gotten super excited about that. And even today, it was still a great series. Carter he hit that game-winning shot in Game 3. He hit that 28-point game, I think, in Game 6 that they won, or it might have been Game 5 when they lost. I can't remember. And then just that Game 7, you saw the Spurs come out on their home floor and kind of played like the peak Spurs in that NBA Finals last year. Danny Green was hitting threes. Patty Mills was coming off the bench. Tony Parker was absolutely dominant in that first half, something like 22 points. Manu was throwing crisp passes. I think Tim Duncan shot over 50% in 5 of the 7 games. Dirk wasn't at his best, and that was like the one disappointing thing. Obviously, you got to give some credit to Greg Popovich. And just from like a nerdy perspective, it was just a cool coaching matchup between Rick Carlisle and Greg Popovich. And the fact that Carlisle even got that Mavericks team to the point that it could be a super competitive series when going in they had lost 9 in a row to them. Just a great overall series.
Nice rapid fire, Gavin. Let's go to Tonis real quick.
I'm going to stick in the Western Conference because it's clearly the better conference with better teams and better everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Memphis Grizzlies. Going in, I thought it was going to be at least relatively competitive, but not as competitive as it was. Based off last year, the Grizzlies beating the Thunder. Even though Westbrook wasn't there, I figured it would be the same type of series, and it was. And unfortunately, we didn't get the Game 7 that the fans deserved.
No Zebo.
Because Zach Randolph punched everyone's favorite Kiwi, Steven Adams, right in the face, which is unfortunate. To which Steven Adams replied when a reporter asked what it felt like, have you seen my sister? In regards to his 6'4", 260-pound Olympic shot-putting sister.
Ooh. Nice background.
Their family must be proud.
This is a large family. I think Steven Adams can take whatever he gets from someone who's relatively his size in the NBA. But it was an incredible series. I picked the Grizzlies to win in 6. Midway through the series, I want to say I was leaning towards Grizzlies before the series. The Thunder ended up pulling through and are continuing their run to the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
Mr. Prime?
Okay, I'm going to have to go with my favorite series being the one between the Golden State Warriors and the Los Angeles Clippers. You have the whole thing with the Sterling Gate going on, which was a huge deal. Kind of really...
Huh? Sterling Gate?
Sterling Gate. You heard it here first.
I don't know what that is. Could you please give me a rundown?
The Donald Sterling racial phone call that got really big right there.
I'm going to have to look into this. I don't really remember that happening. ESPN didn't really cover it at all.
No, not at all.
No.
Well, as long as you're not Tonis, I think most of you have heard about it, and it kind of took over the league and definitely distracted the players a little bit, I think, in that, was it Game 2 Game 3?
Oh, who knows now?
Well, I know the one they came back in because they got annihilated in Game 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Game 4 was the game after where like they made the stand and then Golden State came in and just eviscerated
lost
them.
pretty
Stephen
badly.
Curry comes in and hits 5 3-pointers in the first quarter.
Yeah. And once that was handled, they kind of turned it around and they eventually took the series. Blake Griffin was doing backflips, and it was all around just
highlight of the series.
It was fun to watch. It was just crazy 3-point shooting, crazy dunking, anything that anyone would want.
Yeah, to quote Zach Lowe, they were throwing alley-oops like it was Sacramento in the middle of the season. So that was just cool to see at the end of the game.
And now for my personal favorite playoff series, the one also sticking with the Western Conference theme here, the rebirth of Rip City, Portland Trail Blazers defeating the Houston Rockets in 6 games. Quite the entertaining series. I
think we had 3 overtime games, 4 overtime?
A handful of overtime
3.
games. The Blazers were carried by LaMarcus Aldridge in the first 2 games, and Damian Lillard stepped up and took him home in the last 2 games with the buzzer-beating shot of the playoffs so far. So many, but Lillard's one tops them all.
This was the first one to end a series, I think. So
yeah.
97.
97.
Stockton hit a 3.
To beat the Rockets. it really brought back
Poor
memories
Rockets.
of that shot,
Oh yeah, that's,
the
they were
MJ
both ends of that.
the MJ shot, and just the overall the highlights that you can see from the series is definitely a great back and forth with especially in that, I think it was Game 5 where Wesley Matthews had that steal at the very end to solidify the Blazers win. It just showed the Blazers have a lot of heart, and they're definitely playing, to their full potential, and it's going to be a great second round
Guys,
series.
this is off the cuff, and feel free to agree with me here. We didn't plan for this question, but I just kind of thought about it, and I think it's interesting. What do you think the best team to lose in the first round was? Because I thought all these series were amazing, but then it seemed. But my favorite part about them, it seemed like the team that had the best chance of winning the title ultimately won the series. My one possible exception, Portland and Houston were so back and forth. I think those teams are probably I'd say they're very, very even. The point differential was so minimal. But all that being said, I think Houston was probably, just with the James Harden, Dwight Howard, 2 superstar combo, probably the best team to have lost.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to go, I think Memphis is the team most built to win a championship that lost. I think talent for talent, maybe Houston is better, but I think in terms of a team designed to win a championship, I think Memphis could have gotten the deepest run.
My only issue with Memphis is the Spurs seem to have their number at this point. So if they had run into them at any point,
that still would have been the conference finals. That's still another round, and the San Antonio could legitimately lose to the Blazers.
There was just a month stretch where Houston was had the best record in the NBA towards the end of the season. So I was just a little surprised.
This playoff series, they were unraveled due to their sort of inexperience at several positions and a few coaching blunders.
And just
by
lack
Kevin
of
McHale.
perimeter defense.
Lack of perimeter defense and communication.
James Harden was, except for I think the end of Game 5, he made one really good play.
Defensive maven, James Harden.
It's bad.
ASU grad representing the Devils.
We're proud.
Anyways, guys, we're gonna move on to the second round here. Let's hear some thoughts. Our first series coming up here is the Washington Wizards versus the Indiana Pacers.
Do we have a score update, Gavin?
Wizards up 28, Pacers 22 right now. And I was going to pick the Wizards because they were up by 12, but now they're only up by 6, so I'm a little confused, guys. What are your picks for the series?
I don't think the beginning of the second quarter in Game 1...
Go back and look at the stats, dude. That's what decides it.
should really decide anything. But I'm still going... Despite the fact that the Wizards are winning now, and in history, the team that's leading by 6 or more points at the beginning of Game 1, second quarter, goes on to lose the series 100% of the time.
That's
Did you know
not
that,
wow.
Gavin?
Listeners, that stat is made up.
That is pulling it at you're reaching deep here, Tonis. I mean,
that is true. You can look it up.
Doesn't know about Donald Sterling making up stats.
Anyways, guys.
But still,
who's your pick, Tonis?
I got the Wizards in 5.
Wizards in 5.
Wow.
Really? You think I think the Pacers. I think the series also goes to 7 games.
I don't think the Pacers are good.
You don't think the Pacers are good?
Bad now.
I think. Well, Paul George and Lance Stevenson definitely woke up at the end of that last series against Atlanta. I think I'm taking Pacers in 7. I still have a very small piece of hope left because of the play of Paul George in the first round,
John,
and occasionally Lance Stevenson.
I'd just like to remind you of the team that took Indiana to 7 games and really
had
them on the ropes for 6 and a quarter of those games.
They lived and died by the 3.
Led by the villain,
I think
Ferro
the key matchup to watch again. I talked about this in the first round, but the play of the post players on each team, David West and Roy Hibbert versus Nene and Marcin Gortat. Even though Roy Hibbert hasn't performed, he's still 7'2" with really long arms. It's going to be interesting to see how those two.
Who do you think guards John Wall? Lance Stevenson or
I think
Paul
Lance.
George?
I don't think. I think if
I don't know if Stevenson's quick enough. He's
Stevenson's quick enough, but if John Wall starts to heat up throughout the series, they're putting Paul George on him like nobody's business. And Lance Stevenson will probably already be guarding Bradley Beal. So. Yeah. But then that leaves the mismatch Trevor Ariza and George Hill.
I was going to say something that's been interesting. Trevor Ariza's been going off over the last couple series. And this team when you look at them, you're like, oh, well, it's a bunch of veterans just thrown together. They have, legitimately good chemistry and just, playoff experience. You don't really think of it because it's still the Wizards.
And shout out to Randy Whitman.
Frankly, haven't been, great since the Gilbert Arenas, Caron Butler, Antoine Jameson trio, and I don't think anyone would even describe that team as great. But I just think with the chemistry and the way they're playing, I'm leaning towards Tonis' side. I don't have a ton of faith and Indiana having put it together because of one good game. That being said, when their backs were against the wall, they played at, I'd say, like 85% of what they were at their peak earlier in the season. So I'm going to say, all that being said, I think Washington in 6, but if Washington doesn't win in 6, I'm going to go Indiana in 7.
Quick point
I know
on
that was 2 picks in 1.
quick thing on Trevor Ariza. I was discussing with a friend of the podcast, Travis Arbon.
NBA expert.
Just quickly diverting from what's going on in the playoffs now. Trevor Ariza is an impending free agent.
Mhm.
Is there room for him out here?
Oh yeah.
Whoa, curveball to the
Oh,
Suns.
Hang on. Anyone at small forward.
Suns
I
talk
would
is
take-
always encouraged.
I'm sorry, PJ Tucker,
I think
but
he's a better.
I think he's a better PJ Tucker. He definitely has playoff experience. He has something to
He's
contribute to this
athletic, he
team.
can
He's an
run.
NBA champion. Yeah, he definitely has something to bring to the table.
Tyler,
All right,
what's your take?
yeah, back to the
Suns?
prediction.
Back no.
I
Back
can
to
ask
the-
Tyler first. Suns fan.
Okay, our Suns expert Tyler Prime.
Okay, yeah. So
Thoughts on
I
this?
actually read an article that mentioned Trevor Ariza to the Suns because I believe he's an unrestricted free agent
Yeah.
at the end of this year.
He is.
And so small forward is definitely a place where the Suns can improve because PJ Tucker, great defensive player, offense, not so much.
Corner threes. That's it.
But you know what? Has so much energy. Him and his second unit, squad coming off the bench is something to fear.
I like
Because if he comes off, he can then pick up, and guard whoever you need and give someone a rest. So that could be a big deal.
Also, if you want like a scoring, you can start PJ and put Ariza off the bench. And one thing I love about Ariza is he can shoot threes 40% on the season, 46% in the playoffs actually. So that obviously fits in with everything the Suns are doing. All right, now let's go back to the series.
And now Tyler, for your prediction for this matchup,
Wizards Pacers. I'm gonna have to give it Wizards in another 7-game series. I think eventually they tough it out because of their advantage that they have in the front court. Wouldn't really think of it saying that like a year ago with Hibbert, but the Hibbert now is struggling. And Nene,
It was like a revelation when he scored 9 points in the first quarter. Like Twitter freaked out when he scored. That tells you things are going downhill.
Yeah, the Wizards handled the better front court this year of the Bulls, and they're gonna be able to handle the worst front court of the Pacers and take it in 7.
John, quick prediction on this one.
I've already said I say Pacers in 7. I think Paul George is going to continue his play, but if not, it's really a toss up for me. And now we're going to jump into the next series with Brooklyn Nets and the Miami Heat.
All right, so the Nets swept the season series 4-0 over the Heat, all of which were very close.
All very.
Including
the point spread is 5.
Including the Mason Plumlee, bad.
Ooh.
The block
/ foul maybe on
Tony,
LeBron.
only you can remember it. Miles hates me. Mason is neutral.
right. So, John, what's your prediction for the series?
Well, the Heat are coming off a decent amount of rest after sweeping the Bobcats like it was their business because of the NBA champions. Brooklyn coming off a very intense first-round matchup against the Raptors. I'm going to say that Brooklyn tires out because of the combined age of their veterans. Heat in 6, at most.
At most. Yeah, it makes me sad
It
because
does.
I really am pulling for the Nets to try to get this one. Yeah, 2009 Celtics South against the Miami Heat.
Rest in
And
peace, Boston Celtics.
Rest in
The
peace.
Nets barely managed to escape the first round series by the tip of Paul.
The
Paul
last
Pierce's-
cartilage in Paul Pierce's knees.
Yeah, managed to get up just enough to block that last shot to get them to this round. And LeBron and crew have been holding back all year.
Yeah.
I'm just terrified of them. There's no way they lose this series.
All right.
But maybe tell me something different, Tonus. I want to believe in something different.
Give us faith.
I can't say that they'll win.
No.
Because no one can say that the Nets will win this series. But when the Heat, during the first year of the Heat's dominance, the Celtics, the Celtics came in
Good point.
and
Good
took
point.
them to 7 games when no one predicted the Celtics would do
They
that.
had this series.
That was the
but-
team with Greg Stiesma, right, and Brandon Bass.
Yes.
And
No,
like,
and
No,
it was
no.
like Petrus playing like
Yeah,
crunch time against
yeah.
LeBron. That
Michael
was,
Petrus.
And no one predicted the Celtics had that series.
if Bradley didn't get hurt, I
Well,
think they would have won.
there was-
also
consider it was Doc Rivers coaching this team.
Agreed.
in
but-
retrospect, the issue was that they pushed LeBron too far. Like he got too angry, and instead of
Too
playing,
angry.
instead of like playing like he did against the Mavs, he responded by having a 45-point game, and I think a lot of people consider that the turning point in LeBron's career. Even though people forget he was great earlier in his career.
But
that's besides the
wait,
point.
he was good before that.
He scored.
Did
He
we
had,
know?
like, he had like a 40. He had, like averaged like 39 for a series against Orlando in 2009.
He's
That's neither here nor
incredible.
there.
We
anyways.
know.
I
he's
mean, like
great.
I'm saying, he was clutch in the playoffs. The narrative was ridiculous.
Let's come
We're
back to
going
the
off
present.
but back-
Let's come back to the
but-
It
present.
upsets
guys.
me. Yeah.
But the core of that Celtics team is now in Brooklyn.
Jason
They're,
Terry.
they're
No. He's gone.
He's also
Remember,
not in
he's
Brooklyn
traded.
anymore. Remember?
Traded for Marcus
Yeah.
Thornton.
Oh,
yeah.
I forgot.
But the core of that Celtics team is in Brooklyn right now. I'm not saying that they'll win, but I think they can make the series closer than people are predicting. I think they can take it to 7. I legitimately
You think-
think this
you think
can be a
Heat
7-game
in 5.
series.
Heat in 5.
No,
I'm going Heat in 6. I think Brooklyn's obviously played them well all year. And just like the whole key with Miami is that like they play small and they make you go into like really tough matchups that put stress on a defense. But Brooklyn, I think more than any other team, they only found their identity after that Brook Lopez injury, and that was because now they they just play a bunch of really long, really talented guys. Like Sean Livingston comes in, he came off the bench that last game. They bring Andre Kirilenko off the bench, who's like someone who could potentially give LeBron a little bit of trouble. They just have so many long defenders, and they're so willing to switch. I think all these games are going to be relatively close. Maybe the Heat get one blowout in Miami. All that being said, I think it goes Miami in 6, but I think this is a close, competitive series, and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. don't
You
go down
mentioned
without a fight.
mentioned Sean Livingston and the long defenders that they have. I'm going to say that the key matchup in this series is the backcourts, switching from front courts to backcourts here. It's, Mario Chalmers, Dwayne Wade, Norris Cole, James Jones, those guys in the backcourt versus Darren Williams, Sean Livingston, Andre Kirilenko, Marcus Thornton. It's whoever wins that matchup, I feel, will have
One
the
thing
upper
I
hand.
think he hasn't really played like it over the couple of years, with the exception of a small couple of stretches. But De'Ron Williams at his best could be the second best player in this series, and I think for the Nets to win, he has to be. LeBron's going to be the best guy in the series. Darren Williams has to be the second best guy.
And now we're going to jump over to the Western Conference for probably two series that are guaranteed entertainment. First one,
I hope so.
Hope so. Well, with the way that these teams have played in the first round, it's a lot to look forward to. First series, the Spurs versus the Portland Trailblazers. Who's moving on?
Gavin?
I'm gonna go.
Let's be real.
I think I don't. This Portland team's been playing incredibly well. That being said, I think they found a team in Houston that they matched up with particularly well. So I'm gonna go Spurs in 6. I think San Antonio takes all their games at home where they're just too dominant, and I think that Mavericks game got them tuned up because the one I forgot which writer it was, but someone made the point that the Spurs. The one thing is they don't always come into the playoffs in playoff mode because the regular season, it's just like so many bench guys playing big minutes, which is great. The bench guys are ready, but the starters haven't had to take on this kind of load, particularly the big three haven't had to take on this kind of load the entire year. But with that 7-game series, I don't know what it's going to do for them later in the playoffs. They might tire out, but right now I think everyone's playing really well. Manu Ginobili's playing so much better than he was a year ago. Tony Parker's dominant, and I think this Portland team, just when against a good defensive team like San Antonio, they just don't have enough scoring outside of Lillard and Aldridge.
LaMarcus Aldridge went off in the first 2 games against Houston.
I just like to say, making that point, Tiago Splitter did a great job on Dirk Nowitzki. Kind of like
Let-
this is a
let
similar
me-
game with that mid-range.
Let me
They're
finish
just-
my
sure,
point. Dwight Howard then decided to step up for the first time in who knows how long.
5 years.
And legitimately play defense. And LaMarcus Aldridge, well, he didn't go down significantly.
Yeah.
He came down to earth, and so he can be stopped. And the fact that Tiago Splitter and Tim Duncan are both very good defenders, Tim Duncan with the experience, Tiago Splitter is turning into a very good low post. I mean, he's always
he
good.
was just great on Dirk, just like following him around and just being like a tall guy who like contested every shot, which I think is what they're gonna expect out of him with Aldridge, similar to what Osik did. later in the series.
especially with Robin Lopez as the other big guy. I think they can focus.
Not a huge concern.
They can show all of their attention to Aldridge. Robin Lopez can get his as long as they stop Aldridge. For the most part, they'll be fine. Damian Lillard is going to get his, but I don't think they just don't have enough. They'll steal 1 game in Portland because that's a really hard place to play. But I think it's going to be Spurs in 5. I did say Spurs in 4 last series, and I was very wrong. So
Called
we'll
Spurs
see
in
how this.
7.
So we'll see how this turns out.
Tyler Fryer.
I'm gonna have to go with Spurs in 6. I think they beat the better team in the Mavs than the Blazers. I've been a Blazer hater all year. And
Yeah,
this
we-
is
Tyler,
not ending well.
I don't even think we could have you talk on this. You're probably, you despise them.
But I'm gonna say 6. I'm gonna say 6 because
not denying it.
Lillard warmed my heart a little bit with that buzzer beater. don't hate them quite as much anymore. But it's still not good. And, I think the Blazers and the Spurs play such a different style of game. The Blazers are like a much faster-paced team, and the Spurs are very calm, fluid sort of a thing. And I think that experience, that calmness, and their coaching is just going to be way too overpowering for the Blazers to hang around for too long.
I agree with Tyler. He's pretty much said everything that I've wanted to say, but I say Spurs in 6 as well. But the key matchup for me is the play of the small forwards, Nicholas Batum versus Kawhi Leonard, and whoever the Blazers and the Spurs choose to bring off the bench to fill that position. It's Kawhi Leonard played he played consistently in the first round. It was overshadowed by guys like Tony Parker, Tim Duncan.
If they cancel each other out,
I think,
it's a win for the Spurs.
Yeah, if they cancel each other out, Kawhi's better on the defensive end. But Batum can shoot, so I think Kawhi will have his hands full. But on that end, in that regard, that's one key matchup that I think will entertain the people. And now for the last playoff series that we're going to cover.
The best one.
Quite possibly the best one. The LA Clippers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who wants to start this off?
I'll start this one off. Both survived scares in the first round. Oklahoma City was more scared than the Clippers were.
Mm-hmm.
But both thrilling series in the first round, and these two teams are probably the two of the three most exciting teams to watch in the NBA, along with Miami when they're opening it up.
When they're rolling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a 7-game series. I don't see any way unless it comes down to the end and Durant is Durant and hits a couple end of game shots that.
Which we saw he can do.
Wait, in games the Clippers could have a legitimate shot at
Reliable.
winning. So I think I'm gonna go Oklahoma City in 7. It could be 6 if Durant can't steal a game from LA, but I think this one's going 7. But the Thunder are just going too much.
All right, I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go with a faster win and for a different team. Clippers in 5.
Whoa!
Here it is.
Radical radical.
This is where
radical
Amazon.
predictions. This is where old predictions.
This is where the
ladies
Thunder
and
and more specifically Russell Westbrook self-destructs.
Mhm.
He's going to
He
try
was
to do.
ridiculous in the last game of the series.
It's time for him to do something dumb, and the chemistry is going to get thrown off, and the Clippers are just going to be rolling after the head of steam after the Sterling Gate episode, and they're just going to take it in 5. No sweat.
There are so many interesting matchups in this series. The two superstars obviously being Chris Paul and Kevin Durant. And then you have guys like Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, and the other team, Serge Ibaka and Russell Westbrook. I think the key to this
you didn't say Jeremy Lamb.
I didn't say Jeremy Lamb.
He
Sorry.
was traded for James Harden. He's a star.
Caron Butler.
Anyways, I think
Jared Dudley.
the key to this playoff matchup will be the play of the Blake Griffin and Russell Westbrook, pretty much whichever second guy steps up and plays more efficiently, not just scores a bunch of points, but plays more efficiently and to the style of the superstar. That's who's going to win, because Russell Westbrook in games 5 through 7 of that last series showed that, you know what, when he does have a cool head and makes correct decisions, the Thunder, they're unstoppable. And I think that whoever outplays in that regard, Westbrook and Blake Griffin, that team will win the series. And that being said, I'm actually going to go. I believe in OKC in 7, double overtime.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
very specific,
Very-
John.
very
and
specific,
And I
yes.
really hope that game happens.
Yes.
I
That'd be
would-
awesome.
I'd like to see that. I'm going the Tyler Prime route here. I'm taking the Los Angeles Clippers in 7.
Mhm.
A little further than Tyler. I think obviously this isn't very original, but I think the key is Russell Westbrook in that game 7 last series, 27, 16, and 10, and just shows you the kind of overall force he can be when he's healthy. And I think what's key here is that the Clippers no longer have Eric Bledsoe to bring off the bench and just match him athletically. Chris Paul's a little slowed from that hamstring injury, but I think if Chris can play Russell Westbrook to a draw, not even Kevin Durant, I think they're going to be good enough to win this. I think Blake Griffin absolutely goes off. I don't see the Thunder being able to guard him, and if they try to go big with Kendrick Perkins, that's when they're worse. So I think just the Clippers are more versatile, and they have more guys off the bench, such as a JJ Redick who could come in, or Jamal Crawford
yeah.
who can just come in and make shots.
4-point plays all around.
Just a much deeper team. I like Clippers in 7.
It's definitely going to be a fun second round. And just very quickly, guys, before we head out of here, for who's going to the conference finals, who's going to the finals, who wins it all?
Said conference finals.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. But who wins it all in the very end?
Gavin?
All right, I'm gonna putting me on the spot. I'm gonna go. Here's my caveat. I definitely Heat. I think I'm gonna be shocked if any of us don't have the Heat coming out of the East.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking Spurs in the West. But that if OKC wins, I think they just had the Spurs number just with their athletes and just no one being able to guard Russell Westbrook. But if the Clippers pull it out, I see that being a very competitive series. And assuming the Spurs stay healthy and Tim Duncan doesn't wear down, I see them going to the finals and redeeming themselves against the Heat, winning in 7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Heat are as sure a thing as you do.
Who
I
think
think I honestly think the Wizards can push them. I think the Heat
Really?
will
That'd be
still.
fun.
I still think the Heat will win, but I think the Wizards can definitely
I
make
think
it.
I think it's a 6-game series.
I think the Wizards can make it a series. Heat going to the finals. I'm going with Oklahoma City, and I think it's going to be Oklahoma City in 7, triple overtime. John
Over the Heat.
Over the Heat.
Really, Durant
Or more.
and the actual birth of the Durant LeBron rivalry.
Yeah, I
Wow.
think Lil B is going to come out before Game 7
And curse
lift
LeBron
and lift the curse, and Kevin Durant will
and
will
throw
go
it at
off.
LeBron.
All right, I'm gonna have to go with Spurs Heat rematch as well. I
Mhm.
say Spurs taking in 6 on final play where Tim Duncan gets an offensive rebound, kicks it out to Tony Parker, who hits a 3 over Ray Allen, and then gets up in his face. And celebrates.
Okay.
I think it's a technical. Ray Allen ties the game.
Oh! All
Can you
right.
imagine?
Oh,
Sticking
God.
with the theme of Spurs redemption, I'd like to think that that destiny has set the Spurs on a path toward where they will beat the Heat. I think Spurs and Heat come out. I don't know what kind of conference finals are in store, but those two teams will represent their conferences. Spurs in 7. Different vein from Tyler's, though. Instead of kicking it out to Tony Parker for 3, he kicks it out to none other than close personal friend of the podcast, Kawhi Leonard.
Me and John have a picture with him.
Yeah, we have a picture with the guy.
I haven't seen it.
You're forgetting.
Who hits the 3 because everyone forgets that he's open because he's the one wild card in that series.
You seem to
Spurs-
forget
I seem to
the most
forget.
prolific 3-point shooter on the Spurs roster. Matt
Mark-
Bonner is going to
Oh,
hit a 3.
Matt Bonner. I don't know how he even gets on the floor in that scenario over Boris the LeBron James stopper Diop. But
One quick point there. What's interesting this year is the Spurs. It took so much out of them to even get to that Game 6 and Game 7, and now this year they're gonna actually, unlike last year, they're gonna have a much tougher path, particularly if Miami avoids Indiana. Because I'd like to see Miami play Indiana because if nothing else, it's just going to be a physical, emotional challenge for
Ridiculous
them.
series.
If Miami doesn't have to play the Wizards could give them a series, but just emotionally, it's not going to be the same thing. If Miami doesn't have to play anyone of that caliber, and the Spurs have to go through Portland and then either LA or OKC, that's going to put the Spurs are going to come in as a more tired team, and I don't know if they can afford that given their older guys.
that being said, only time will tell if our predictions will come true. And
I can't argue with that.
and just a public service announcement for those interested, we will be recording our pilot episode for the Blaze
Live.
1330
Live.
13:30 a.m.
Live in terms of we're not doing it in the past.
yeah, live in
There
terms
will
of
be no audience or public broadcast.
we hopefully we'll be able to actually be on the radio next semester, and we'll be talking to you guys about
Yeah,
basketball
so if
there.
you're
You can
available
listen
at 2:30 Western time, 5:30 Eastern time.
live. That's I think 7:30 in the morning Guam time.
If you want,
I highly
wake
doubt
up and
anyone.
listen to some
Coffee.
NBA chat.
Wait.
I know my parents will be awake. I don't know about anyone else.
I know Rod will be awake.
So tune in.
California.
He'll be there at 1:30. Yeah.
Tune into the Blaze. If you really like it, maybe send an email to our director, give him a shout out, say the Bench Mob needs to be live all the time.
Either
Also-
Rod or
all
Ryan
the
Baffler,
time.
'cause I don't have their emails. But
We may have a new name.
Maybe.
We may.
The show we will undergo
It's
some
contingent.
format. Yeah, we will undergo some format changes.
But don't worry, Scrubs.
Yeah, but don't worry.
The heart and soul of it
We'll
will
be
remain
back.
the same.
Oh yeah. And just for the thank you everybody for listening, supporting us.
particularly
See you next-
Slava.
Particularly Slava
See you next
Krapstov.
semester.
See you next semester.
Have a good summer, hags.
Slava's
Peace.
my muse.